The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim is directed by Kenji Kamiyama. He was a background artist on Akira, as well as Kiki's Delivery Service. He directed Jinro the Wolf Brigade, wrote Blood the Last Vampire, as well as quite a bit of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. And this film is set 183 years before the events chronicled in the original trilogy of films, and tells the fate of the House of Helm Hammerhand, the legendary king of Rohan. And in this film, a sudden attack by Wolf, a man seeking vengeance for the death of his father, forces Helm Hammerhand and his people to make a daring last stand in the ancient stronghold of the Hornburg. But before we get into the rest of the video, I do want to give a special thank you to the sponsor, BetterHelp. Many people out there, including myself, deal with stress and anxiety. It can be absolutely crippling sometimes. All of us have different pressures, whether it's school, work, family responsibilities, or things that we want to do but haven't quite got there yet, achievements we wish we could make but haven't quite taken the steps to get there. Whatever that may be, it's great to be able to talk to somebody about that, which is why BetterHelp has been amazing for me. BetterHelp is on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. You fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. So if you're struggling and you think you'd benefit from a therapy session, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann and get 10% off your first month of therapy. That link is in the description below. That's betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann for 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. I don't think I'm ever gonna lose the incredible amount of happiness that I feel when I realize just how much anime has been accepted in our society and our culture. Because it's really hard for me to forget how difficult it was to track down anime in the 90s when I first discovered it. Not a lot of people were into it and it wasn't very mainstream. You might have found some VHS here or there, you might have seen something on late night television or maybe on the Sci-Fi Channel Saturday morning, but pre-Toonami, anime was really hard to come by. So all these years after Peter Jackson's brilliant trilogy, to get a legitimate anime feature film financed by Warner Brothers Pictures and put in theaters, produced by Jason DeMarco, the co-creator of Toonami, just the movie's existence alone is doing a lot of things for me emotionally. Now I'll say that I saw this movie fairly early. I'm filming this near the beginning of November. I can't post this review for like another month into December. And so I don't know if any more changes have happened to the film. I don't know if it was 100% finished or not, but it seemed pretty complete to me. This is a well over 2 hours animated film, and it's filled with quite a bit of action. I was really struck by about minute 40 at just how much is happening. It really feels like they have fit so much into this narrative. Helm Hammerhand, voiced by Brian Cox, finds himself in the middle of a war that he doesn't want to be involved in, and his daughter Hera has to step up and do things she never thought she would, while also betraying people that she once loved. When it comes to the Lord of the Rings mythology, I really don't know anything about it. I've of course seen Peter Jackson's brilliant original trilogy, I've seen his Hobbit movies, I've seen the Ralph Bakshi animated things, I've listened to Howard Shore's soundtrack a billion times, but that's it. So if people watch this movie and feel that there's some kind of story inconsistencies or something that doesn't match with Tolkien's lore, it's not going to affect me. I'm just looking for, is the story good? Is the animation good? Does it feel like a Lord of the Rings story? And for me, it absolutely did. I thought the animation was quite great. There were a handful of sequences in the movie where they tried to do 360 spins around characters, especially when it comes to horse riding, and horses are very notoriously difficult to animate, and you can tell a few times. There's a few movements of people, like there's one shot where Hera is jumping over somebody in slow motion, and there's just not quite enough frames there to accompany that slow motion. But for the most part, it's a really damn good looking movie, especially the backgrounds, which is often something that's overlooked in animation. Brian Cox is great as Helm Hammerhand, Luke Pasqualino is excellent as Wolf, but Gaia Wise as Hera is the true standout. I really loved her. She reminded me a lot of Nausicaa. There's a defiance in her, a desire to prove herself, and when she gets that opportunity, she doesn't falter. But it's really the way the film maneuvers family dynamics, friendship, and betrayal that kept me invested. Because Hera and Wolf have a deep backstory all the way to childhood. And now that they're enemies and forced to fight one another, a lot's going on when they're clashing blades, and it's not just about the action. Speaking of Brian Cox, his character Helm Hammerhand, that last name makes sense. He's basically One Punch Man. Don't ever get hit by this guy. You're gonna die in a split second, and he has potentially the movie's best scene where he is fending off oncoming enemies outside of the stronghold in the middle of a freezing blizzard. One thing I was afraid of when I saw the trailer was that it begins with footage of Peter Jackson's trilogy, and I get it. They're trying to make people know what this is and hook them by something that everybody already loves. But sometimes when I see things like that in trailers, it feels like it's not relying on the actual story, and they're afraid that they won't be able to sell people on it, which I guess makes perfect sense because not everybody likes anime. But I was just afraid that the movie was going to have reference after reference after reference after reference. And sure, there are certainly moments where you're like, I know what that is. I know who that is. I think I know whose voice I'm hearing right now. Like things like that absolutely happen in the movie. But it does not feel like it is relying on those things. It didn't feel like this story needed any of those things to be a good story. It just feels like exactly what fan service is, where you've already got a good story and there's an extra element of something just to make you smile for a second. And there's enough of that and not too much of it. Like it feels like just the right amount for me. I'll be very curious to see how the public reacts to this movie because I know that even though anime has become considerably more accepted, there are still a lot of people who think it looks weird and who don't really understand it. And so I don't know if this movie will do well. I hope that it does, because I would love to see more properties be given this treatment. Whether or not it will be embraced by Lord of the Rings fans remains to be seen, but I found the film very entertaining. I was never bored once by it. The score is quite good. All the voice acting is good, and the animation could be better, I will say that. But I never found it distracting, and it didn't really take away from the experience for me. Like for instance, I recently watched this movie, The Colors Within, which was excellent. Science Saru did that. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but they've done really incredible work, and that film looks just so fluid and genuinely perfect when it comes to human movement and character animations. And although this movie looks amazing, I didn't see that same fluidity present. But I also think that I'm just being a little nitpicky. The battle sequences were very impressive. This is a damn good looking movie and a lot of fun. And if you like Lord of the Rings, I have a feeling you'll probably enjoy the movie. But also please do check it out in theaters because I would hate for Warner Brothers to learn the wrong lesson with this. I've seen a long history of slightly more adult themed animation in theaters just tanking at the box office all the way back to Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So let's not let that happen here. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.